Hello, I'm Doug Mayo with the Jackson County Extension Service. We're here today at the 2011 Panhandle Peanut Short Course, and with us we have Dr. John Beasley, who's an extension agronomist with the University of Georgia, who's going to talk to us about dryland peanut production.
Yeah, and you know, in the past we've always known that Georgia at least would have about 50% of its acreage planted under irrigation and about 50% without irrigation. I know in Alabama it's probably less than that, probably maybe 20–25% irrigated at most. Don't know about the Florida Panhandle here, but probably not 50%.
No.
So we've trended the last year or two to be more like 55 to 60% non-irrigated. And I wanted to target more of my agronomic production program toward non-irrigated production. We got concerned with these new cultivars. They got great yield potential, high yield potential, good grade potential compared to Georgia Green, but how do they perform under non-irrigated conditions? Because when you got a seed and a pod that's bigger, it's going to need more water, and especially some of them have a more canopy growth than Georgia Green. So we were obviously concerned there. I began to do some research center trials, a Stripling Irrigation Research Park, which is a University of Georgia Research Center up in Mitchell County between Camilla and Newton. They have a system where I can compare under one lateral, irrigated, non-irrigated, and the interaction there. And I've done that the last 2 years. Had more than enough rain in 2009, so we didn't really gain much from those results. But in 2010, last year, we did see a difference. And Georgia 6G was the one large city cultivar in that trial, and it had a much higher yield than Georgia Green. We've also done the on-farm trials, and we've had multiple cultivars, large plot, farmer's field, 6-row, 12-row plots, 1,000 feet long, whatever it took, and replicated across the field. And we've stretched them from the southwest corner, not far from Jackson County and the Florida Panhandle, all the way to the eastern part of the state near South Carolina. And what we've seen is from some sites got plenty of rain, others it was pretty dry. These large city cultivars still tend to hang in there pretty good. In fact, they have a better yield potential even under non-irrigated conditions. So for any grower that's out there planting peanuts under non-irrigated conditions, I would not hesitate to plant one of the new cultivars, even with that larger seed size. Our data thus far shows that they respond very positively and much better than Georgia Green, so that's a positive. We are concerned about disease management because non-irrigated or dryland peanuts can still get diseases. Last year and the year before last, we saw a lot of white mold. That organism is really triggered to explode by heat, and so with just a little bit of moisture, heavy dew, light rain, if you don't get sufficient rain, you can still have severe problems with white mold. So I would encourage all producers to look at the risk of each field using peanut prescription, then look at a good disease control program that will make sure they keep at least white mold and leaf spot under control. And then of course the other diseases, you'll know your field history and got to work on that. We do have some insect problems. Lesser cornstalk borer is real bad under dryland conditions in a hot, dry spell. Spider mites can flare up, and then this past year, burrow bug, which hit us more toward harvest time. So if you're growing peanuts under non-irrigated conditions, do know that there are some pest problems like lesser cornstalk borer, like the spider mites and this burrow bug that can be more of an issue than under non-irrigated conditions. And I guess the final point to remember, and there's a lot of things we could talk about, but one other final point is the fact that in a year in which we have off and on rainfall or sporadic rainfall and we get high temperatures, a lot of times that intense heat like we had last June and on into July and then again in September interrupts the normal development of the peanut. And so just because you plant on May 1st does not mean you can count forward 135, 140 days and be ready to harvest. You will see an interruption in that natural progression of maturity especially in non-irrigated peanuts. So watch that carefully, continue to use the host rate maturity profile as a guide to help you determine when to harvest. And don't be surprised in a year like 2010 you may have peanuts that are supposed to be ready in 140 days that are ready in 150, 160 because of that interruption.
One final question. I know with our dryland production we're more keyed on rainfall, and with our new varieties we're looking at earlier dates. Is there anything growers need to know about kind of a trigger as to when to plant?
Great question. Because all of these new cultivars have much better resistance to spotted wilt virus than Georgia Green had, I would not hesitate to go ahead and plant. That's a key point. to go ahead and plant when you got moisture. So in mid to late April, if the soil temperature is at least 65 degrees or higher, make sure it's plenty warm and stable, and you got moisture, go ahead and plant. In the past, you tended to wait to mid-May because that's what we told you to do to help reduce risk of spotted wilt virus. But go ahead and plant if you got moisture and soils are warm. These cultivars do well when planted in late April.
Thank you. And with us again is Dr. John Beasley. We appreciate you coming down to share with our folks. I'm Doug Mayo from the Panhandle Peanut Short Course.